My name is David Robbins. I am a product manager with our customer experience and engineering team, and my focus is Purview eDiscovery. So I will hand it over to John real quick to introduce himself, and we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. John Wirtala. I am part of the eDiscovery team as well. So again, product manager on the same team as David. So we support eDiscovery together across all of Microsoft.
Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and get us started here. So today we are going to talk about a very hot topic. John and I get asked about this almost every single day because for a lot of our customers right now, Copilot is very top of mind. And not just the exciting things that Copilot can do for our customers, but also to make sure that Copilot meets and checks all those compliance and regulatory boxes that you have, and to make sure that it's fully supported by eDiscovery. So that's what I'm going to talk to you all about today, collecting Copilot for Microsoft 365 interactions using Purview eDiscovery. So this is today's agenda. We're going to talk about what we've heard from our customers, what we've delivered, and how to collect Copilot interactions using eDiscovery Standard and eDiscovery Premium. So let's start off by talking about what we've heard. So when we first announced Copilot, the common feedback we got from customers was that eDiscovery support is a must. It is not optional. And these are the questions that we got. Are Copilot prompts and responses eDiscoverable? Can I put Copilot interactions on legal hold? Can I review Copilot conversations? Can I review the documents a user shared with Copilot? And can I export these conversations? And I am pleased to announce that yes, to all of these. You can collect these Copilot prompts and responses. You can put them on hold. You can review the conversations. You can see the documents that were shared to and from Copilot. And yes, you can export these conversations as well. And one question we didn't get often, but is also important, can you search and delete these Copilot interactions? And yes, we have made an update to the Microsoft Graph API to allow you to not only, collect these interactions, but also to delete them. And so how it works. The first thing is that Copilot interactions are stored like Teams messages. And there's a very good reason why that's beneficial. So when it came to this new format, these Copilot interactions, we wanted to make sure that you didn't have to go and reinvent an entire new process around collecting these prompts. That you could use something that a lot of our customers are already doing, their process around handling Teams conversations, to handle these Copilot interactions. So the good news is, if you have a process in place today to handle your Teams conversations and chats, you can use that to handle Copilot interactions. The other good thing is, if you actually look at a Copilot interaction, it's very much like a conversation. But instead of conversing with, one of your colleagues, you're conversing with Copilot. So there's a question, there's a response, it's very conversational. And we can use the capabilities we have to handle Microsoft Teams to handle these new formatted Copilot interactions as well. So we'll get a lot more into that later on, but just know that we do offer support for collecting, preserving, reviewing, and exporting these Copilot interactions, and also with the added benefit of being able to do a search and delete as well. So one thing I want to make sure that we're call out, and this is going to be a big theme, is that all these interactions have their own item class. So what that means is you can use a targeted collection to not necessarily get all of the Copilot data, but also to get selected Copilot data. So if you're looking for interactions for PowerPoint, you can target that. If you're looking for interactions around Teams, you can target that as well. So we'll get more into that later when we actually look at using Purview eDiscovery to collect these, but just want to make sure that we're calling that out. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about how we collect these Copilot interactions using eDiscovery Standard.
All right, thanks, Dave. So using eDiscovery Standard, I want to make sure too that we will also be going through the premium, eDiscovery Premium, and how that's collected. There are some limitations with Standard that Premium actually has additional offerings or actions that they could do. But when selecting Copilot in actions using Standard, we would go ahead and create a case, or actually, if you've already created a case, we would go ahead and select a case. So here we have a case with the Woodgrove Copilot interaction. So from here, I would go ahead and create my case. And then from the cases, I would actually want to go ahead and click on searches. So if you go at the very top, we click on the searches tab. Once on the searches tab, here I would then need to go ahead and click on new search. So again, very similar to how we do this for other searches when we're within a case looking up information. But once I click on the search, it actually brings me to the all familiar search wizard. So here I put in the name of my search, description, and then I would go to the next slide here. So or to the next step. Once here, I go to my location. So for here, I would actually, because as David mentioned, the Copilot interactions are, again, captured or stored within the user's email box. So here I would go ahead and choose Exchange. Here I'd also then look up the person, the subject who I want to capture these interactions with. So here we chose Dusan. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. There we go. All right. From here, this will actually put me into the conditions wizard. So here I'm going to refine my search within what I want to find within Copilot. So here under this, I would choose add conditions just underneath the keyword. I would choose type. So once I click on type, here this would bring me to the type selections. Here I see, email messages, documents, but underneath that I see add or remove more options. So obviously I want to look and see what other options are because I am searching for Copilot. So if I click on add more options, it brings me up a much larger list. So looking at the expanded list, I can now see and choose the Copilot interactions right there at the top for my search. And then I could also on that page add, date ranges and so forth. But once I'm ready, I've collected my Copilot. If I go ahead and with Copilot, when I select it, as David brought up before, it collects all sorts of interactions within Copilot for all the applications. And so if I click on the little KQL button below the query builder, so once I've done my refined searches and so forth, this query builder is going to show me, the KQL editor is going to show me all the instances that or property that translates the different classes that are within Copilot. So from here, I could actually filter, edit my search further. So as example, it will show, Copilot messages for Loop, OneNote, Excel, and so forth. But maybe I just want to search, for just Excel, or maybe I want to remove all Copilot interactions for Loop. So from here, I could actually remove the interactions or the search for specific applications within this editor. So where we see, for example, David's on highlighting Copilot for Outlook. Here I can remove that syntax line in the parentheses, and then when I do the search, it's going to remove and not search for Copilot interactions for Outlook. So go ahead and click next. Okay. So once I've done that, I've selected what I want to search. I go ahead and complete the search, and then when I finish running the wizard, the search results will show me here what the collection and search summary is. So we've done the search, we have our search results. So next we would need to preserve the Copilot interactions. So put a hold on this. So again, very similar to how we use eDiscovery for other holds and so forth. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So now I want to preserve and create a hold on the search results for Copilot. So here I go to the holds tab under the case and select create. So if I go ahead and click create there under the hold, here again brings me through the hold wizard. So where I fill out the information and name. I go to the next step. I choose my locations, very similar to what I did before. And again, we're choosing Exchange because these interactions are stored within the user's email box. So very similar step to what we did before. I choose Exchange. I choose the subject of my search. Let me go to the next screen. And then once I've done the search query is, again, very similar to when we were in the query builder. I didn't show these slides here because we just went through it on the slides before, but again, same thing where I choose the type, expand my search, choose Copilot. But then here I go back and I click on the KQL editor before I begin doing the hold, where I could then go back and narrow my hold on Copilot Interactions. So maybe I want to just focus around certain specific applications I want to put the hold on.
Yeah, and just to add here, John, real quick, that this step is optional. You can absolutely put the user's entire mailbox on hold.
Yeah.
You don't have to target the particular, Copilot interactions. You can put the entire mailbox on hold, but if you were looking to, say, only preserve Copilot interactions or build other types of queries, our holds in eDiscovery Standard do support that query building or that the query-based holds. So if you wanted to have a more targeted hold, you could do that. But once again, this is optional. You can absolutely put the entire mailbox on hold if you wish.
And just as a reminder, again, we've gone through this, but choosing Copilot as a type, it will always automatically choose all applications. So again, let's go back to this query, the KQL, if you want to refine that. All right. So next is we've done the holds or we've done the searches. How do we export this? And so using standard, the next step is I want to export my results of my Copilot search. So I'll then go under the searches. I'll choose a search I did for Copilot. So here we go, and it shows the summary of the search. When we go to the next slide, under actions, I'll go ahead and I'll then click on actions. And like other reports here, I would choose export in to export the results. So once I've exported the results, I'll actually get I'll be given the options for my export results and choose, be able to choose the options I want to. So for Copilot here, I'm going to choose the one PST for each mailbox. From here, I'll click on the export. It'll give me the summary of the collection that I've exported. So again, just shows me the summary when it started, the size, how many items, and so forth. So here I could go ahead and close that out. And then once I've completed the export with standard, you can actually view my export results in the result log. So in standard, that you'll get the result log view in CSV. If I want to actually look at each of the lines within or my Copilot search results and take a look at the items or the interactions that I preserved, we go to the next slide. I could go ahead and open the PST in Outlook, and this is the view I will receive. So I want to call out that these interactions are not threaded. So with standard, it will actually show the results will give you one email per line of chat. So for example, if you have put a question in Copilot, it'll show that question within this line, but it's not going to show the response. You're going to have to go to the next line or find that line, which will show it in a separate email. And for this example here, as an example, this user is asking Copilot to summarize the Mark B project in Word here to summarize it. So here we don't see the summarization, we just see the action or the ask. For the next, if we go to the next slide, it'll actually show.
One thing I do want to call out here real quick, John, is if you go look, you'll actually see where this prompt was generated. So you see here in Copilot for Word, that is where we were asking this particular prompt, where we asked this request from Copilot. So you can actually kind of see that in the actual header to see what I will say application that generated this particular prompt. Sorry, now let's go to the next one.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. So, and again, here, as David mentioned before, you will see that, Copilot in Word, here's the response. And again, on a different line, but here's what the response is from the person asking Copilot to summarize. So again, it's showing the summarization and the result of the ask. So again, standard is going to be, there's some limitations here, but this is how you would collect, export, and walk through the results within standard on your preserving and capturing Copilot interaction. So with that, how is it different in premium? And I'll let David run you through that.
Yes. So now that we've covered how to do those Copilot interaction collections in eDiscovery Standard, let's talk about how to do the same in eDiscovery Premium and what some of the advantages are of using eDiscovery Premium over eDiscovery Standard. So first, let's go ahead and go into eDiscovery Premium. We are going to create a new case over here. So after we add all our information, name, description, number, we're going to hit this next button, and let's go ahead and add our custodians. So in eDiscovery Premium, we have the concept of a custodian. So the custodian is the individual or individuals that you suspect have the data that you're looking for. So I'm going to go under our data sources tab, which is unique to eDiscovery Premium, and I'm going to go ahead and add a new custodian. So I do that, and here is where I identify my custodian. So we're looking for Dusan over here. We're going to go ahead and select the custodian. And this is where we go to associate the custodial locations with the custodian. So here's our custodian. Here are all the locations that the custodian is responsible for. So generally, the majority of the time, that's going to be a mailbox and OneDrive. We can add any additional Exchange locations that they might be responsible for, like a secondary mailbox or a SharePoint site that they own, or any teams that they belong in. But for this example, because we are looking for that Copilot interactions, we are going to focus on the custodian's mailbox because that's where those interactions are stored. So I am not going to select OneDrive. I'm only going to select their mailbox, and I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Now, John walked you through how to create a hold in eDiscovery Premium. That's absolutely fine. And in eDiscovery Standard, and in eDiscovery Premium, you have a similar option. You can go under the holds tab and create a hold policy and select the mailbox and set the KQL query. But in eDiscovery Premium, you can also place holds using this custodian. So if you wanted to place a hold on all the locations that we called out under this screen, you can check this box and it will put a hold on all the locations that we called out on the previous screen. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are doing holds using custodians, it's going to put the entire location on hold. So it won't just put Copilot interactions, it will put everything on hold. So do keep that in mind. Now, the vast majority of our customers do place, the entire location on hold, and that's absolutely fine. But if you're looking to use, the KQL queries, keyword query language, to kind of scope it down to a more narrow hold, you would need to do that by going under the holds tab in eDiscovery Premium and creating a hold policy there. So after we've defined our custodians, the next thing we're going to go do is create our search. So we're going to go under this collections tab here, and we're going to go ahead and create a new collection. That brings us to our new collection wizard. I'm going to give it a name and description. And here's where we're going to specify what locations we want to search. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to select custodians, and we're going to say we want to search Dusan over here. And by putting in Dusan's name and selecting the button, and then you'll see that we have located our custodian and our custodian's mailbox. Because we did not define any other custodial locations under data sources, these are all going to say none. But if we had specified their OneDrive or additional mailboxes or sites, etc., then we could select those too. But once again, we're looking for Copilot interactions. Those are stored in the mailbox. So we're going to check this box. And after we've defined where we want to search, I'm going to hit next here. And just like with eDiscovery Standard, the next is building your query. So we know where we want to search, but what are we searching for? And that's what we do through our search query. So just like eDiscovery Standard, I'm going to go to our KQL editor over here, or actually the query builder over here, and I'm going to select type, just like with eDiscovery Standard. And as John mentioned, when you select type, you'll have an option to get that Copilot activity. So I'm going to check that box. I'm going to hit the done button. And just like with eDiscovery Standard, when we go to that KQL editor, we see that that type search property actually converts into all of these different item classes, which gives us that granular control to basically say, hey, I'm not interested in seeing anything except the Teams Copilot interactions or the Outlook Copilot interactions. So once again, if you don't want all of the interactions, you can modify this query to target only the interactions that you're interested in. That's why we have it broken down by all these different item classes to give you that granular control to do much more targeted collections. And also, one thing I do want to call out, this gives you the opportunity to exclude Copilot interactions as well. So maybe you don't want to include those Copilot interactions in your export. Well, you can do that here as well. So, if you want to say, hey, I want everything but these Copilot interactions, that's another thing that we can use that type property for, to make sure that we're excluding them, not just including them. So on the next screen, I've just simply added a date range, which what you can see over here. And let's go to our estimate. So just like with eDiscovery Standard, after you run your search, it will generate an estimate showing you how many items that we found, the locations, and you can see the search conditions you used below down here. And now that we have all of this in place, let's go ahead and send these results to a review set so I can show you what it's like to review Copilot interactions in eDiscovery Premium. So I'm going to go ahead and click my my commit collection. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the name of my review set over here. But now here's that time that John was referring to. While I don't want to say that, I wouldn't want to necessarily say that anything you do in eDiscovery Standard is limited. I would say that eDiscovery Premium does have some pretty significant advantages when it comes to collecting Copilot data. And these two options, Teams and Yammer Conversations and Cloud Attachments, are two of those big advantages when it comes to Copilot. So I'm going to show you first what that review set is going to look like if you did not check these options. And then I'm going to explain what these options are and how they're going to influence your results. So first, we're not going to leave all of these options unchecked, and we're going to go ahead and send it to a review set. And when we do this, you'll notice that these review set looks a lot like what you saw in eDiscovery Standard. And if you sent them to a PST from the review set, you'd see results pretty much exactly like you did from eDiscovery Standard. So once again, it does not give you the full conversation necessarily. What it does is it basically gives you the different lines or prompts from a Copilot interaction. So as you can see here, when this custodian asked Copilot, and this is Microsoft 365 Chat Copilot, what was the last file that was shared with me? This is going to basically save that prompt as a single email or like a fragment of a conversation. And then when we go next, you can see another example of the custodian asking Copilot for Word this time, a question. Or actually, this is not a question, this is an ask. using the information, in these two documents, write a one-page description of the Mark 8 project and write it so non-technical people can understand what the project is about. And then we go to the actual response, which is also saved as a separate email. And that's where basically Copilot generated this document explaining what's going on here. So if you want an experience in eDiscovery Premium, similar to what you see in eDiscovery Standard, unchecking those two options will give you that. It will give you basically the same results that you get in eDiscovery Standard. But if you want to take advantage of the new features of eDiscovery Premium, that's when we got to look at what the value these two options can bring to you. So let's talk about this first option first, Teams and Yammer Conversations. So as I showed you earlier, in eDiscovery Standard and in the the first review set I showed you, Copilot interactions are saved like Teams conversations. They're saved in a very fragmented manner, which is really good for if you're, afraid of ever losing data. You're not going to lose anything. But when you're trying to actually follow the entire conversation, be it with another user or with Copilot, you're left with basically a bunch of puzzle pieces that you have to assemble, which can be a little bit tricky, depending on the length of the conversation, especially. So, like I said, in eDiscovery Standard, and if you have this option unchecked, it's a pretty fragmented conversation that you have to go and then assemble into the full Copilot interaction, or as I mentioned earlier, with a Teams conversation. So, what we've added in eDiscovery Premium is the ability to put that puzzle together for you. So what we can do in eDiscovery Premium is take all those different lines from a conversation and assemble them into a full conversation, be it either a Teams conversation or a conversation with Copilot. So it will actually go take all those pieces of a conversation and put it into an easy to read transcript for you in eDiscovery Premium. So I'll show you what that looks like momentarily. Now, the second option that we have here is also really important, and that is cloud attachments. So I don't know if everyone attending is familiar with what a cloud attachment is, but basically it is a linked document. So instead of sharing a traditional attachment, where if I am sending John an email, I browse out to my desktop, I select a file that I want to share, and then I send that email, and that attachment is embedded into that email. Unlike traditional attachments, we're not actually sending the file itself. We are sending a link to that file. And then when you click on that link, it doesn't take you to a copy of that file. It takes you to the original file in the original location. So these are things that are frequently used right now. So, we're seeing more and more usage of cloud attachments over traditional attachments every day, which is a good thing because they are more secure. They allow for better collaboration. They take up less space. It's a lot of really good things about cloud attachments. But the problem is in eDiscovery, especially eDiscovery Standard and other eDiscovery products, when you get a chat or interaction or prompt that has a cloud attachment, all you get is that link to a document that you may or may not be able to access. So when you see that email or chat with that link, we don't know whether or not, you'll be able to access what's behind that link. Well, in eDiscovery Premium, we have a solution for cloud attachments. If you check this box, you won't just get that link in the document like you saw in Outlook when John was showing you that in eDiscovery Standard. We will go out and actually get you a copy of that document as well. So we will get you the file behind the link. And why that's important for eDiscovery Premium or eDiscovery in general is because this way you won't just have that link. You don't have to worry about going out and running additional searches to get that file. If you check this box, it will go handle all of that for you. And for Copilot Interactions, why it's so important is because that's also how we provide you a copy of the file that Copilot generated or that was shared with Copilot. So if you're asking Copilot to create a presentation for you, if you have this particular option checked for cloud attachments, we will go out and grab you a copy of that file that Copilot generated without you having to run additional searches like you would in eDiscovery Standard or other products. So it's a big value of eDiscovery Premium because it does allow you to get a copy of the file that Copilot generated, or that without you having to go out and run additional searches. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to create a new review set. And then I'm going to go into my review set in eDiscovery Premium, and I'm going to group it by families. And here is what I was talking about when I talked about that transcription. So as you can see here, we don't just have that one line like we did in eDiscovery Standard or when we had that option unchecked. Now we get the reply as well in this HTML transcript. So we see here's the question, here is the custodian's prompt, and here is what Copilot replied with. And it applies to other things as well. So once again, now we're looking at a different conversation with the custodian. They're talking to Microsoft 365 chat, where we asked, what was that last file that Arit shared with me? And guess what? We actually have the response, and because we had that cloud attachment enabled, we will go out and get a copy of those files as well. So you'll be able to see what the custodian saw when they asked this question. And for an example of that, let's go back to that prompt we looked at in eDiscovery Standard. So once again, our custodian is saying, hey, using the information in these two files, write me a one-page description of the Mark 8 project. And like I said, now we have gotten that transcript because we had that first option selected with the Teams conversations. But because we had cloud attachment selected, we also got copies of the files that were generated. And you can see that, when we go look at the response over here, here's the response, what the actual response was about the Mark 8 project. But here is what those files look like in the review set. Because under this source view, we basically use our web applications to generate the ability to go through the actual presentation. So you can see not only the request, you can actually see what files were shared with Copilot for Microsoft 365 and what files were generated as part of that prompt. And that's what you're looking at in eDiscovery Premium. So once you've identified the items that you're looking for, let's talk about how you can actually export them using eDiscovery Premium. So under our review set, you'll see that you have the option to export your results. So I'm going to select that. And you'll have a little bit more options than you did from eDiscovery Standard when it comes to exports. But we're basically going to keep this very similar to what we did in eDiscovery Standard. We're name and description. We're going to do loose files and PSTs like we did before. And, we're not going to worry about including these additional tags, text files, or doing any kind of redacting. And here is what that exported HTML transcript looks like. So once again, this is something that we can do in eDiscovery Premium where we put that conversation together for you. So if you don't want those individual chats that you have to basically thread later on, in eDiscovery Premium, you can use that Teams conversation option, and it will put these into a very easy to read transcript for you to use. And it will also collect the actual documents behind these links. So you won't just get this HTML transcript, you will also get the files behind it. So here's another example of another prompt or Copilot interaction. and Copilot response. And once again, this was in Microsoft, in Copilot for Word. So the takeaways here. When it comes to Copilot interactions, we treat them like Microsoft Teams. So if you have experience collecting teams in either eDiscovery Standard or Premium, none of this is going to be a surprise for you. You can use the same downstream processes to handle the Copilot interactions that you do the Teams conversations. You have the ability to find these in both. It's fully supported in eDiscovery Standard and in Premium, E3 and E5. You have the ability to identify these conversations. You have the ability to collect them. You have the ability to put these results on hold, and you have the ability to export and review them. And last, if you have E5, because this is an E5 feature, you can actually do the Copilot search and delete as well using the Graph API. So we do get a lot of questions about this. I will kind of jump to the chat at this point of time and turn this over to John and the moderators to see if there's any questions that we can answer with our remaining time.
Well, thank you, John and David. This was awesome for sharing this information with our community. So there's been a lot of questions, but the team's been doing a great job on answering them. So I'll kind of go from bottom up, tackle the recent ones. So the first one goes, how does EDP handle cloud attachments that were renamed or removed?
So this is when we have to have a whole other discussion. We could probably just do a webinar on cloud attachments in general. That's one of the most popular questions that we get. So, John, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do a session on cloud attachments. So this is when the version shared feature, that is another feature that we have that you can enable in Microsoft 365, is invaluable. Because if you do have that version shared feature, and maybe if Aaron or Alistair, if you want to put in a link in for what the article on version shared, but what that will allow you to do is in the case a file is deleted and that user is not on legal hold or any type of hold, we can still recover the version shared at the, the version shared is the file that's shared at the point of time with the custodian, but you'll still be able to recover that. Otherwise, that's why legal holds are important, because if you do have that location on hold and the custodian deletes the cloud attached file, you would still be able to recover it using eDiscovery. But if you don't have a hold on the mailbox and you're not using version shared, then unfortunately, if the custodian goes in and deletes that file, you won't be able to return it as part of a cloud attachment. So once again, very strong use case for version shared, very strong use case for holds. If you have any of those in place and that file is deleted, it can still be recovered. But if you don't have the location on hold, you don't have the version shared enabled, unfortunately, they would be able to delete that leaked document.
Thanks, David. To the person with initial CZ, a similar question to the cloud attachments. I believe David already answered this, so we'll move on to the next one, and perhaps there might be a future webinar coming up on this topic. So
yeah, I think we probably could do that.
Yeah,
it's a hot topic.
Moving on to the next one. Can I use a specific retention policies for Copilot interactions, or do they have to be the same like for other Teams chat or Teams
Currently,
chats?
they are treated like Teams chats, but watch the roadmap in case there's something that is coming along to be able to keep those separate. So I'd say for that one, pay attention to our roadmap.
What role access is needed for us to be able to collect the data? eDiscovery Manager role? That's the question. And so all the prompts are stored in a hidden Outlook folder. And who has
Correct.
access to this hidden file?
So you're right. All these interactions are saved in a hidden file or folder, not file, hidden folder. So the end user, the custodian, doesn't know they exist, can't go in and kind of mess with them or see them. They are in a hidden folder. eDiscovery Administrator permission or eDiscovery Manager permission will give you the ability to go in and collect those. Copilot interactions do not require a special permission for eDiscovery. If you have eDiscovery Manager or Administrator or a custom group, you will be able to basically collect these Copilot interactions. Now for search and delete, because I did mention that does require a special permission. So your typical eDiscovery administrator or manager does not have the ability to do search and delete without an additional permission set. But you don't have to make any kind of special permission changes to be able to collect Copilot interactions.
Okay, thank you for that, David. Next one goes in the hold search wizard. The location is listed in Exchange mailboxes. What's the difference between Exchange and mailbox?
Ooh, that's a good question. So you're talking about probably under custodian, where you saw both mailbox and Exchange. Get that question a lot. So mailbox is that custodian's mailbox. So that is the mailbox that is directly associated with the custodian. But that Exchange option, what does that mean? Why is there an Exchange button then? Well, some users have more than one mailbox. A lot of executives might have multiple mailboxes, for example. Or maybe there's a shared mailbox that custodian is responsible for. So if you need to add a mailbox besides the primary mailbox, which is covered under that mailbox option, then you would use that Exchange for maybe a secondary mailbox or a shared mailbox, any other mailbox besides the primary mailbox that you want to associate with that custodian. Good question.
Thank you. What's maximum time period to store Copilot chats?
That depends on your policies. So there is not a maximum. You can set retention policies to keep these as long as you want, or delete them when you want them to be deleted. So that is kind of up to you. You can store them as basically long as you need to, or you can delete them whenever you want to delete them. So that is completely up to you to determine how long you want to keep these interactions for.
Okay, thank you. While following along, I receive an error. The compliance case type entity does not have the following type command, which is create parameter name entity metadata. I guess that's a question.
Not too familiar with that particular error message. We'd have to kind of dive into that one a little bit more. So what I would say there is if this seems to be unexpected, something that you don't, then I would advise you to create a support ticket for that one.
Okay. Why isn't this necessary conversation merging threading part of eDiscovery standard?
Because it follows the same format that Teams does. That's something that, how Teams saves content. So when it comes to conversation history, the most important thing is none of it's lost. Like, we don't want to be in a situation where we're saving snapshots of entire conversations, say every 4 hours, because if something happens and Teams crashes before that 4-hour window, you have the potential of losing data. So the good news is the way that we save data in Teams right now allows you basically to make sure that you're never going to lose any of that conversation history, because it's basically made as it goes. The drawback is, once again, it's kind of in that fragmented manner, which is, I guess, the price to pay for how we save that data. So we're not losing anything. So to answer your question, the reason why is because that's how Teams basically saves conversation history to avoid any opportunity to lose data.
Okay, thank you. How integrated is Purview eDiscovery with Microsoft Backup?
I am not the best resource to answer questions on Microsoft Backup, but I would probably look into that a little bit more. So unfortunately, I'm not the best one. I don't know if John, Alistair, or Aaron have any input there, but unfortunately, I'm not the best one to ask questions about Microsoft Backup.
Yeah, I don't have on that one. I'd have to do some discovery on that.
Okay, thank you. If the documents have labels, does the eDiscovery find the details? And M365 Copilot is personal assistant. Why do we have to find user conversations?
Not sure if I fully understand that, but if you do have labels on any content, documents, whatever, those will also be captured in eDiscovery as well. If you're using, Microsoft Information Protection sensitivity labels, then we do have that ability to decrypt that content using eDiscovery Standard and Premium, and with the ability to export that content, depending on the content itself. But if you're using a supported encryption type, we will have full support for that for eDiscovery.
Okay. Can we classify data files where it restricts eDiscovery on contents or individuals?
Yes, that's a kind of loaded question. We have different features like compliance boundaries, and as I mentioned with these queries, to where you can exclude certain people or custodians from being searched, or you can exclude certain data within the custodian's locations from being searched using queries. So yes, I would advise you to look in compliance boundaries and see if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Thank you. How can we find Teams Copilot meeting transcripts?
So we do have the ability to return transcripts if the meeting is recorded in eDiscovery Premium. So if you basically are searching for a meeting and that has a recorded call or a recorded meeting, then we will be able to provide you with that transcription services. So we have great articles about that. Maybe we can put some in the chat. But yes, we will be able to provide that transcript if the meeting has been recorded.
Great, thank you. I'm noticing some theme of questions. There's another question between the difference between the Exchange mailbox, Exchange and the mailbox. So for those of you still on the line, this webinar will be recorded, and if you go at the top, you'll find the links on where we'll be publishing the recording towards the end of the day. So I'm skipping that one because that was already answered. Moving on to the next one. Do you have best practices document on setting? Well, looks like Aaron is already replying to this one, but I'll go ahead and finish it. So best practices document on setting up premium eDiscovery or train classes and learn.
We do have some really good documentation about that. If you do a search for eDiscovery Premium, we go through pretty much the entire kind of process from top to bottom. We have a lot of good resources. I know there's some additional webinars out there for it too. So there is a lot of material that will basically tell you how to get started with eDiscovery Premium.
Thanks, David. And yes, Aaron already shared a link for that. So thank you, Aaron, as well. Moving on to the next one. Let me see. It looks like there's 2 questions. Okay. Let me try this. What role access is needed for us to be able to collect the data? eDiscovery Manager role.
Yes. So eDiscovery Manager has multiple roles in it. Just for a little FYI here, this is really important for everyone on the call because I get a lot of questions about this. There are 2 separate what I'll call main eDiscovery permissions for Purview eDiscovery. There is eDiscovery Manager and there is eDiscovery Administrator, and those are different. So eDiscovery managers can only see the cases that they've created or been assigned to. So if John creates a case and we're both eDiscovery managers, I won't even see John's case until John gives me access to it. So it's great for privacy, where you don't want everyone to be able to see each other's cases. Use eDiscovery Manager. eDiscovery Administrator can see everyone's cases, regardless of whether or not they've been assigned permission. So thank you for the opportunity to share that. We get a lot of kind of confusion on what the difference is between a manager and administrator. What it comes down to is managers can see only the cases that they've created or been assigned to. Administrators get to see everything. So that aside, both of those permissions will give you the ability to get these Copilot interactions. It does not require a special permission set for Copilot to get the interactions. If you are doing that search and delete that I mentioned earlier, that does require an elevated permission. So keep that in mind too. But absolutely, there's not some special permission that you need. You can use the eDiscovery Manager role group. You can use the eDiscovery Administrator role group. to basically find these Copilot interactions.
Thank you, David. Will the Outlook hidden folder contain all the prompts from all M365 apps?
Yes, from all the apps, but not for all users. It'll only be per custodians. So it would only be, for example, John, it would only be John's Copilot interactions. It wouldn't have other people's interactions in there. But yes, it would have all the different applications in that location.
Can information on DLP alerts, insider risk management alerts be pulled out from Security for Copilot?
That is a different work stream. Copilot for Security is a whole different conversation. So there are two main Copilots that our team deals with. There's Copilot for Microsoft 365 that we're talking about today. That's the one that's basically, hey, it's integrated with Word, it's integrated with Excel. You know, that's what we've been focusing on. Then there's also Copilot for Security, which is a great product. That's a new product that basically has Copilot integration with Purview and Defender and other areas as well. Different functionality though, because Copilot Security is focused on basically how we can use Copilot to improve your response when it comes to compliance and security. But they're not saved together because they are two really separate products. So what we're talking about today, in short, is Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. If you're looking for more on Copilot for Security, I definitely recommend that you take a look at it. It's an incredibly powerful tool. So if you're interested in how you can better use Copilot to help with Purview, I definitely recommend looking into Copilot for Security.
Okay, time check here, 5 minutes before we wrap up. So we still have some open questions. Hopefully we'll be able to complete all of them in time. So the next one goes, do I understand correctly that there aren't any unique eDiscovery capabilities or feature gaps for Copilot versus Teams? It seems like an incredibly sensible approach. I just want to make sure my understanding that the Copilot eDiscovery capabilities are the same as Teams, since Copilot is being written as though it was Teams.
So I don't really know how to exactly answer that one. eDiscovery intent, eDiscovery wise, yes, they are treated like Teams. When we rolled this out, we knew that we did not want to have our customers to come up with all these incredibly new processes for handling Copilot data. We wanted it to be an experience like you already, something where you didn't have to go out and reinvent the wheel, that you already had a downstream process for handling it. And it made sense because, as we kind of were looking at, these Copilot interactions are like a Teams conversation. It's just with Copilot. So as far as eDiscovery goes, they're pretty much treated very similarly to the Microsoft Teams conversations. So I'm glad that it's sensible.
Thank you, David. Can Copilot data be extracted via content search?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But content search, you can't place holds. There is no review capabilities. It's just literally search and export. But you can search for those Copilot interactions and export them using content search.
Yeah.
Chris says, less Purview, more Copilot. Can users see their old prompts in one place until they're purged? Or is it until they're purged, he's asking?
I'm not sure on that one. We'd have to get back to you on that. Because you can't go back and it depends on where you're looking at it, I guess would be the better question there.
Interactions are saved under user's mailbox. Does it occupy allocated users mailbox storage?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay, and I see that on the last question, Alistair is replying, so I'll leave that at that. Thank you, David and John, for being our guest today and for sharing this great information with our community. Also, I would like to thank our SMEs who helped us with answering this truckload of questions that came in and providing some resourceful informations. And to all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desires to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Because we believe that together we can make a global impact. So please join us at aka.ms/security community. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. Also, please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. And for those of you who may have additional questions on this topic, or what that we just covered, or other product related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space, and the short link for that is aka.ms/Microsoft Purview community. And all these short links that I'm verbalizing here, you can find the actual link up above at the beginning of the webinar under the live event Q&A section. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.